Does Dhurandhar the Revenge live up to the hype? Does Dhurandhar the Revenge give us the kind of payoff that we expected after the first Dhurandhar? Is this movie gonna change the trajectory of the Hindi film industry in the years to come? Is Dhurandhar the Revenge gonna be the biggest Hindi film ever? Well, these are just some of the questions that I'll try and answer in this video. So buckle up, because today we're gonna talk about Dhurandhar the Revenge. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Millennial Part. I can't tell you how excited I was to make this video, but I think I am caught in a position similar to Aditya Dhar, because just like him, I thought this would be one glorious video where I'd be able to pack everything in, but I've watched the movie twice by now, so I thought I have a lot of thoughts and I just need to keep them separate. So my review's gonna come out in two videos. This is part one, where I'm gonna talk about Dhurandhar the Revenge as a fan of the movie. In this video, I'm all about the good stuff, the stuff that I wanna celebrate, the stuff that I wanna rave about, the stuff that I wanna share with you, the stuff that made Dhurandhar the Revenge so special for me. And just a couple of points for housekeeping before we proceed further into this video. The first is that this video is gonna contain some spoilers for the movie. So if you haven't watched the movie already, I've done a preview where I cover where Dhurandhar, the first one ended, whatever happened there, and what were some of the things I was excited about, some of the concerns that I've had. You can see the video somewhere here. And I've also done a spoiler-free review of this movie. It's in the form of a short, but if you're looking to get some very raw opinions that are still spoiler-free, I've done a short. Go check it out. And the second thing is that during the course of this video, you may hear some dogs barking in the background. They're essentially patrons of the show, so I can't do anything about it. But without any further delays, let's talk about Dhurandhar the Revenge and everything that's worth celebrating in this grand movie. I'd also like to preface by saying that Dhurandhar the Revenge is a flawed movie. It has a lot of flaws. It fell short in a lot of places. But in spite of all that, it still managed to deliver a fantastic cinematic experience that still exceeds some of these bigger productions and what they call their best work. Okay, so the first thing I loved in Dhurandhar the Revenge, and I'm gonna start from the beginning, is the Jaskirat Singh Rangi story. In my preview video, I did mention that one of the things I was most excited about was to learn about Jaskirat Singh Rangi, see where his story began, what really went down, what happened that put him on this path. And in this movie, Aditya Dhar wasted no time. From the first scene, he went into it and he went into it hard. The movie starts with giving us a glimpse of Jaskirat Singh Rangi with his family, with his father who's serving in the army, and they have a picture-perfect moment. That was really cute. Then suddenly you've got the title card, and the immediate next scene is him going to UP along with his childhood friend to procure drugs and weapons. And then what happens from there is absolute carnage. There's no other way to put it. It was carnage, it was bloodlust, it was ultra violent. But let me also say this. It wasn't just mindless violence, it was still grounded in a lot of emotional depth. In that entire sequence, they kind of established that how this person who's been embedded in an enemy state against enemy agents and carrying out this operation on behalf of India was let down by his country. And it's quite poetic. Like when you look at that that origin story, like what really went down, what put him on this path, it makes you think that what is patriotism? There is a very famous quote. Some people say that Adolf Hitler said it, some people say that it was Roosevelt. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So I think the first 20, 30 minutes of the movie really just sum up this one statement. And I felt really emotionally invested in this character. Like in the first one, Hamza's just playing in the shadows, but in this one, he's front and center. And to get his backstory, to know where he comes from, really adds a lot of emotional investment and a lot of emotional depth into this character. So you don't just see him as someone looking to sabotage operations across the border. You start looking at this guy as a human who had a beginning, who had an origin. And there are moments where you feel sad for him. There are moments where you feel sympathy. You feel empathy for him. You feel bad for him. But because of those moments, when he does end up winning in the course of this movie, you start you start admiring him. You start feeling pride in whatever he manages to achieve. You start celebrating all of his victories, small or big. So that was the first part that I loved. I loved Jaskirat Singh Rangi's, his story, whether it was the origins or the last 5 minutes of this movie. Absolutely love it. Chef's kiss. Now I've already raved enough about Jaskirat Singh Rangi's story and the origins and the first 30 minutes. The carnage that I spoke about in those first 30 minutes is absolute gold. I mean, for me, the gold standard in action cinema is John Wick. It's been John Wick for the last 10, 11 years now. These first 30 minutes got that close to achieving that level, that close. This was one peak detail which he got spot on. And not just Aditya Dhar, the action director, the credit goes there as well. And the credit goes to Ranveer Singh for the conviction with which he played this. And that was that when you're a recruit or when you're relatively new to the forces, to the training, you are far more stiff with how you handle your weapons, with how you move. Hamza has a very fluid movement. He's got a very fluid style of wielding weapons, using those weapons. But when you're fresh out of training, the way you walk is extensively dictated by the marching drills that you do on the parade ground. It is extensively defined by how your military ustads or your military trainers train you to handle those weapons. How do you hold them? And because you're relatively new to handling weapons, you hold them a little tighter than a seasoned operator would. So, in that entire, at the beginning of that carnage, the way he's just walking up a ramp with his AK-47, and he's holding the weapon very stiff. His shoulders are very stiff. His body is upright, and the way he's taking every single step is almost like it's a drill march. Peak detailing, loved it. But what begins from there? You get to see him use a Glock. You get to see him use an AK-47. You get to see him use a hammer, an axe, whatever he can get his hands on. I mean, those first 30 minutes, I said they're full of gore and violence, but there is so much blood. So much blood. And like I said, it's not just action for the sake of action. It is action that conveys something deeper. In those first 30 minutes, you see a man who is fighting for something more than just himself. He's fighting for his family, for his sister, for his family's honor. And the rage that takes over. This guy, you see blood in his eyes. That that whole thing. I mean, I'm falling short of words here, but you got to witness it to know what I'm talking about. The action choreography was spot on. How they use the entire action set piece, and how they use the surroundings, the environment. What is the equipment lying around? How are they using all of the props? It was spot on. I think going forward, this should be the gold standard for most action filmmakers in India. And this should be like the baseline. This is where they should start developing their action set pieces in the years to come. And truth be told, the entire action set piece is just unforgettable, and you would find yourself going back to this action set piece time and time again, because it will never get boring for you. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about are the performances, and especially the lead of this movie, Ranveer Singh. In the first movie, Akshay Khanna stole the show, hands down. But when I reviewed Dhurandhar as well, I said this, that as a special agent, as a spy, it is his job to operate from the shadows, to not be seen, to not be heard unless it is really required. And he did that. Ranveer Singh's character in Dhurandhar was a ghost. Simple as that. But here, this dude is front and center from beginning to end. If the first movie was all about Akshay Khanna, this is all Ranveer Singh and all his glory. Through the course of this movie, he's shown a range of emotions that makes a film lover like me really happy, because this is what we sign up for when we go for movies. We we want to see an artist perform beyond their limits. In this entire movie, Ranveer Singh has shown us performing grief, rage, his intellect, his situation awareness, his environmental awareness. And there were a few scenes where it is nothing but just his eyes that are doing the talking. Now, the two scenes that I specifically want to mention is at the beginning, when he's carried out this operation as Jaskirat Singh Rangi to rescue his sister. And when he finally gets to his sister, he's looking at her in horror. The way you see that horror in his eyes, and his eyes just open up, is just, it is an unforgettable image. The second scene is right before the interval, when the twist comes that his best friend has recognized him, and he says, "Jassi tujhe ghar ki yaad nahi aayi." In that scene again, while he's washing his face, and suddenly he looks up in the mirror, and the way his eyes just they open up like that, unforgettable, dude. And the final one is in the ending of the movie, when he's tied a turban, and he goes to his pind, to his village, um, to reunite with his sister and his mother, to reunite with his family. And he looks at both of them, and his nephews playing in the yard. And this guy, like, the camera starts zooming into his face. This guy looks at them, and then he looks away, and then he turns around and he leaves. Now, in that moment when the camera is zooming in, and the moment when when he's turning around, zero dialogues, nothing else, but that one expression conveyed the dichotomy of being a secret agent, of devoting your life to your nation, and also taking a call, a moral call of whether to reunite with your family who've assumed you to be dead for the last 20 odd years, or to not put them in harm's way and just walk away. And that was such a bittersweet scene, like, again, unforgettable. I think that was hands down my favorite scene in the entire movie. So, Ranveer Singh is an absolute class act as an actor. Dare I say, he is the biggest thing in Hindi cinema today. And I'm not even exaggerating this. He is the biggest thing in Hindi cinema, period. Now, apart from Ranveer Singh, there are a few other performances that I want to mention because they really added that oomph to the movie. The first name that I want to mention is Udaybir Sandhu, who plays the role of Ranveer's best friend Binda, who also eventually becomes a drug lord. Now, Diljit Dosanjh has proved this that whenever you make a Hindi movie and you want to show a Punjabi character, no matter how big of a star you are, Ranveer Singh is an accomplished actor, but the phonetic excellence, the vocabulary, the flow, the intonations, there is just something that comes naturally to you if it is your mother tongue. Udaybir Sandhu, every time that he spoke Punjabi was music to my ears, even if he was cursing at the drop of a hat. I think he gave a great performance. I'm going to be looking out for this dude. Really impressed. The next name that I want to mention, and this should come as no surprise, is Shri Rakesh Bedi. In the first, when I reviewed the first movie, I called him a weasel. He is a weasel and a lot more in Dhurandhar the Revenge. But again, I loved how he was the comic relief in this movie, apart from SP Chaudhary Aslam, played by Sanjay Dutt. But any of the scenes that he appeared in, and even if he's just discussing about farts in the legislative assembly, it it was hilarious. Like it was a riot in both the shows that I went to. People were laughing their asses off sitting there. And I also want to mention that towards the end of the movie, when the final card opens, that Rakesh Bedi is also an undercover agent who's been in Pakistan for 45 odd years. In that moment also, though, he's got a very grim expression which is not as trivial as we've seen him for these two movies. He's got a very straight face, very poker face, and there is just this kind of unintended humor that comes through in those scenes. And I think it is the sign of an accomplished artist, who's devoted his entire life to comedy and to acting to be able to pull it off. And even in his last scene, when Jaskirat Singh is getting on that chartered plane to go back home, and he's just looking at him enter the aircraft, and just again, it's all in the eyes, guys. Like, for if you have to look at great actors, you need to look into their eyes. And in Rakesh Bedi's eyes, in that moment, you see this sense of longing, this sense that he also wants to go home, but he knows that the job's not done, so he's got to stay back. Class act through and through. Love Rakesh Bedi. All my respect for this dude. And the final mention that I want to make in the acting department goes to Sara Arjun. Like, unlike the first one, I think her screen time was relatively less in this movie, but she got a couple of scenes where she really owned it. And I specifically want to talk about the scene where she confronts Hamza because she's just discovered his diary and she knows that he's an Indian agent planted in Pakistan. And the way she brings out that emotion, like in that scene, Sara Arjun needs to enact this moral conflict in her head. Here's a dude that she trusted, but is an agent of an enemy country. But he is also a dude that she fell in love with and still loves him, and who is the father of her son. In playing that, see, it's a very there are enough movies where you see this kind of marital conflict play out, and at times it feels very underwhelming because the actors are showing too much of a restraint, or at times it feels a bit too much because the actors have just, they've gone overboard. But I think Sara Arjun just found that perfect balance of how to have the perfect amount of restraint and to perform it in a way where you see her conflict. You also find validity in a lot of the things that she's saying, but you also understand that she is acting out of ignorance because there are certain things that she doesn't know or she doesn't fully understand. So I loved that. Limited screen time, but it still had an impact. It still gave us an unforgettable scene. So kudos, Sara Arjun. Now, the next thing that I really loved in this movie, and this has been consistent from the first Dhurandhar, is the casting, the makeup, and the prosthetics. In the first one, they gave us some characters that were closely aligned to real life people. Like you had Rahman Dakat, you had SP Chaudhry Aslam, and you had Uzair Baloch, even Major Iqbal to some extent, who looked very close to the personalities that they were based upon. In this movie, they brought in someone who looks identical to the Pakistan Prime Minister from that time period, Nawaz Sharif. They changed the name, but the first time that he makes an appearance in the movie, and everyone in the theater, everyone's jaws just dropped because it's like, wait, how is, did these guys use AI or like what did they do? It is just something special. Like when a casting director gets a brief, like what kind of a person do we need? And this guy got a brief that, okay, I need someone to play Nawaz Sharif. And he goes out and gets a guy who looks exactly like him. Exactly. They say there's like seven doppelgangers that all of us have in the world. This guy found the perfect doppelganger. How crazy is that? And in the first one, they did get someone to play Zardari's role, which was pretty close. But that was like a 9 on 10. This one is a 10 on 10. Now, in my preview video, I did say that there's a fan theory that Bade Sahab might be Dawood Ibrahim. It was Dawood Ibrahim. But one thing that I mentioned was there was another theory that Imran Hashmi is going to be playing Bade Sahab. And my counter to that, and this is all in the preview video, was that I want a lesser known actor to play that role. Imran Hashmi was too convenient. And they managed to get a guy, give him some brilliant makeup that made him look almost like Dawood Ibrahim. Like we've seen a lot of actors play Dawood Ibrahim. Imran Hashmi was one of them. Rishi Kapoor is another one. But this guy looked like Dawood Ibrahim. Like in that entire dinner party scene, he looks identical. So credit goes to makeup, credit goes to casting, even in terms of the prosthetics. I think when a movie has so much gore and violence in it, and it's pretty full on, and you see heads getting chopped off and legs getting chopped off and all that kind of scene, I think it becomes very important for your prosthetics to be top notch. And that is where this movie did not let any of us down. When the heads were chopped and Uzair Baloch is carrying Arshad Papu's head through the marketplace, it did not look like a dummy. It looked like a real head and scary as And even in the final boss fight, when Hamza chopped off Major Iqbal's legs, you can see that one leg's been sliced off clean and the other one is just hanging in there barely by an inch of flesh. Again, that is impeccable detailing, and it only added to to my movie watching experience. Now, the next thing that I really enjoyed in Dhurandhar the Revenge was the music. I'm not saying the background score because I personally believe the background score in the first Dhurandhar was far superior, but I really fell in love with the album for Dhurandhar the Revenge. I know a lot of people have been comparing, I've also been comparing, that is the album as good as the first one? Yes and no. Now, I'll put it this way. It is slightly different from the first one. The first one had more, um, it had more pacey, more, it had faster music, it had faster songs, a lot of club worthy songs, if I am to put it that way. In this one, however, the tracks feel really grounded, and there is a kind of spiritual element, or like a songs that operate at a deeper conscious level. So they're not just surface level songs that you can just put in your car, or you can play at your party or whatever and just jam to them and dance on them. Not those kind of songs, but for me personally, this album really hit me at a very existential level, because in this album you've got, of course, Jasmine Sandler's is like a perpetual presence in Dhurandhar 1 and 2. We got Satinder Sartaaj in Jaiye Sajna, and when I listened to that track for the first time in the theater, I was like, hold up, is that Satinder Sartaaj? And his vocals really, like, they ground that song, like, and it's like a very groovy and a very like a prohibition era jazz band kind of a music with those same heavy bass riffs that really give you that that kind of groove to it. Really love that song. Durandar the Revenge title track, Ari Ari, it's been good. I think it starts off really well with the electronic battle drum, so to speak. But I think the first one had better, but this one still is pretty spot on. I still enjoy it. It's become a part of my workout playlist as well. The next track that I really loved was Destiny Man Atkaya. Now, you've got a brilliant rap in this, in this song by, what's his name? Yeah, by Token. It's a it's a nuclear spit. That's what I'm gonna say. That rap is just on another level. But when the classical music comes in, when the classical vocals come in, similar to what Sataj did with the other song with Jaiye Sajna, it really grounds the track, and like, um, hits you at a spiritual and an existential level. Again, really groovy with a slightly heavier bass crunch, but I couldn't help but notice that the synth in this song is very similar to to one of the instrumentals that we got in Ori the Surgical Strike. I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would bet my money that Shashwat Sachdev probably used like a couple of samples from that album to just slide them into this track to elevate the song even further. But my favorite track, hands down, from this entire album is Jaan Se Guzarte Hain. Originally, it is a Nusrat Saab song, and see, those songs were performed with the instruments of their time, with the sensibilities of their time. But I love Shashwat Sachdev for this, and uh, I've really started appreciating him a lot, because he's found these music pieces from the past and he's redone them in a way that makes them more relevant, that gives them an added layer of energy and an added layer of impact. The entire song, again, it is a very bass heavy song. Like, you can actually hear the bass guitar strings going tung dung, and the vocals by Khan Saab. I I have loved his voice. I've fallen in love with this dude's voice and the way this song hits. Again, it's a very it hits at a spiritual, existential, dare I say, a molecular level to me. My favorite song out of the entire album. Go check it out. You're gonna love it. And I gotta give an honorable mention to one track which, for the love of God, I can't seem to find on Apple Music. And it's an Arijit song which plays towards the end when, Jaskirat goes to reunite with his family but then turns away. That is such an emotional song in a very emotional scene, and it just left me in tears. Like, if you've got a link to that song, if I can find that song anywhere, if you know the song, please drop it in the comments. My immense gratitude to you if you can find that track for me. Apples and oranges. I love the apples, but I'm also enjoying the oranges. Great album, loved it. Now, the final thing that I really loved in this movie were the twists. Now, I'm only gonna talk about my experience when I watched this movie the first time because I didn't know those twists were coming. And I usually pride myself on being able to see these twists from a mile away, but it has only happened for the first time in a really long time that I did not see any of the plot twists coming, and it literally kept me on the edge of my seat. Whether it was Jaskirat's best friend recognizing him and confronting him, or whether it was the Rizwan switcheroo where he moved from Arshad Pappu's gang to the Balochi gang and just turned the game on its head. Whether it was Jamal Jamil's final reveal where he says that, I've been an agent in Pakistan for like 40 odd years, like nobody knows about this. Whether it was Alam taking the fall for Pinda's death, and actually it's a pretty long list uh, of twists and turns. And I think the best way to put this is like it was almost like being on a theme park ride where you don't know where your cart is gonna go. Like it's up, it's down, it's turning, it's rotating, you're upside down now, and absolute chaos and madness. Now, I have to say this. I loved the plot twist. They really caught me off guard on my first watch. But when I went to watch this movie the second time, and I knew that these twists are coming, at that point of time, I started noticing a lot of flaws in some of those twists as well. But like I said in this video, it is all about me giving full on fan energy and just raving about everything that I loved in this movie. Now, have you watched Dhurandhar the Revenge yet? And if you have, please don't shy away from sharing your views in the comments and letting me know how you felt about this movie. What were the things that you liked? What were the scenes that you ended up falling in love with? Drop them all in the comments. I love it when I get to read your comments and just looking at a community that loves movies just as much as I do. And that was the review, part 1. When I was reviewing the first Dhurandhar, I did say that it has split the audiences. Like, there are people who absolutely love it or people who are up against arms. With this one, what I feel is it has left the audiences split, where it hasn't polarized people as much as the first one, but what it's ended up doing is it's left a lot of people confused because there are parts that they absolutely love and adore in this movie, and there are bits and pieces that have left them really uncomfortable. And I'm not just talking about politics, I'm also talking from a cinematic point of view, about the detailing, the logic, the technical aspects of this movie. So I've talked about all the good bits, the bad bits, the questionable bits, the uncomfortable bits. They're gonna drop on Tuesday in my review part 2, where I don't talk as a fan. In that video, I'm gonna be talking as a critic and a cynic, taking this movie apart and going into finer details about what were the things that did not land well with me or the audiences in general. So please stay tuned, and if you like this video, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, hype this video, share it with your fellow Dhurandhars, and subscribe to the Millennial Bard for the latest and the best in cinema, pop culture, and superheroes. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, look after your mental health, stay hydrated, and God bless you all.